Colm Keegan I had honestly never heard of, and was travelling home in my car one day, and Sean Rocks was on the radio with Arena interviewing Colm, and he was reading a poem, Punk Mother, and it just hit me between the eyes, and I had to pull over in the car to listen to it because I was crying. So I knew instantly from that poem that Colm would be able to connect with some of the people who access emergency services from our housing department. So that's where it came from.
All right, what's the bike? So we're just heading up to the Good Shepherd now. This is week 6 of the 6 sessions. Been coming down every Thursday, 2 to 4, working with the lads, mostly lads in the service users up here. Yeah, so in the bag I've got the laptop if we need it, and about 35 pages of poems. If you're homeless in Kilkenny, you go to the Good Shepherd. That's what happens. If you're single and you're homeless, I suppose. Like, the project has been kind of running across a few counties, but it started here. We tried it out here back in 2019, and it culminated, like, the end of the 6 weeks the last time around was just when the pandemic hit.
Homelessness is where the ability to access accommodation is broken down. When I first started in homeless services 36 years ago, you were looking at 97% men, most likely chronic street drinkers, possibly with a mental health issue. Fast forward 36 years, you're looking at men, women and children. Now the ratio is around 60% men, 40% women. We see children in homeless services. And when it hit the big numbers in 2020, 2021, in excess of 10,000 people, we hadn't seen anything like that in this country since the Irish famine.
The housing crisis was pre-COVID. It was the figures that you looked at on the 6-1 news, and it became a very impersonal, desensitised way of looking at a housing crisis. It just became the figures, and the whole objective was to remove people from hotels, but nobody's asked the question, where did they go? Do the solutions last? We're talking about people, they're part of our community, our societies. How do we interact with and help those people, or get them back being functioning parts of the community?
On the surface it looked like, yes, let's do something in creative writing, and I suppose for us something much more fundamental was about to happen. This was, in its simplest terms, create a simple space for people to find ways of expressing their situation, about their lives. Often the one thing people forget is homelessness in itself is a trauma, and what it often does on top of that is trigger things that may have happened in the person's past. So it's a very unsafe and destabilising time in someone's life.
Yeah, normally, like, for the last session, what we do is just look through the work that you've done so far.
You jump out into mid-air and you just go down, and when you come to the end of the rope, you start swinging.
Yeah.
I don't really know.
Yeah, and like that moment, like, is it the moment when...
A couple of seconds of joy stepping out into the air.
Stepping out into the air.
A lot of people are invisible in homelessness. That's one of the most frequent things that people say when they come in here. On the other side of that, I think the general public, once they hear the numbers going down, and it's not on the news anymore that there's 8,000 people in hotel accommodation, so then, oh, okay then, we're off the hook, we don't have to feel anything about this or be concerned about this. So I just think we need to allow a space for people to communicate with each other. So most definitely the arts and creative industries can do that, because everyone can have an emotional connection. If you make something, or if you write something or play something, you don't think about where it comes from, but then when you realise where it comes from, it changes your view of homelessness.
I've been working in kind of different disadvantaged contexts, bringing poetry and creativity into the community for years, and I'd kind of got this toolkit, and lots of experience working with people all across different contexts, from secondary schools, youth reaches, different community organisations and even prisons, and all of the different things that can come up in those contexts and how you manage that. And then I was able to kind of develop the programme of different ways to engage people with literature and creative writing, and sort of build a programme around personal development and just create a space for people to share their experiences, and then as a way to create works of art that would sort of almost serve as research or evidence of experience for organisations that are supposed to help people to better listen to them and understand them.
You get it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What race they are, what religion they are, where they come from.
Yeah.
You know, around here, you know.
That's kind of what we piloted in the Good Shepherd in Kilkenny, and the results were so strong that we ended up going on to talk to Creative Ireland about doing it on a bigger scale before COVID. And then when COVID hit, it became harder to reach the people that we needed, that we wanted to help, but it became more important that we reached them. So the whole project had this kind of pivot where we wouldn't let people say it's too hard, not now. We were like, this is when it's needed the most, so we kind of pushed forward and we did everything we could. And that's the project that turned into Writing Home then, which became using creative writing to help people undergoing homelessness through COVID. We went to Poetry Ireland and says, we need help to deliver this project. We can't do it on our own. And Poetry Ireland stepped up and stepped in.
We've worked with Colm on an ongoing basis with our writers in schools. Artists are kind of great entrepreneurs, but are pushed on an ongoing basis to manage absolutely everything themselves, which it can be very difficult.
And I suppose for me, I was stepping up from being just a guy that walks into a place and delivers a workshop once a week to somebody who's trying to develop something that works on a national level across multiple organisations, dealing with loads of different people, sending out millions of emails, making publications, organising events. Poetry Ireland were like a great support for me as a writer and a facilitator. It wouldn't have been able to happen on the scale it did without them. The first people that we contacted were Bentley Hostel, and they were very interested in the project. And we just had no way to, it was like, yeah, we're going to go in and visit, and then you were legally not allowed to, or officially not allowed to visit people anymore. So it was like, right, well, we'll try and do it over the phone. And then he ended up just working with one participant called Sharon, just talking to her on the phone, and talking to her about poetry and just teasing out stories and ideas and stuff like that, getting some stuff down on paper and emailing it back to the key worker or the staff in Bentley, and then they print it out and give it to Sharon, and then we kind of talk, and it was a bit of a correspondence.
The system. I don't want to focus on negatives, but some things they need to know. I see people come and go, get places like that, you know. Feeling pushed back, being a mouse in the corner for far too long. At the minute, I'm happy out. I don't have to share. I've had really bad experiences in the past. I've wanted to walk out of here so many times. Sometimes the key worker, she's young. You can't just read it out of a book. You have to look at someone's story, look at their life, the way it's been for them. I feel sometimes that they don't get me down there. Blokes come in and because they're 55, they get a place real quick. What about the under 55s? I saw a girl in here with mental problems. She ended up getting a place really quick. What if I pretended I was mentally ill? It's like I'm not being heard. I feel I need to stand up for myself. You have to do this and do that. We all have to go by rules. You have to take that into consideration. Respect for the staff and myself, it goes a long way. I know, but it feels like I'm wrong all the time. There's always human error. Don't get me wrong. The key worker is a lovely girl. She's done so much for me, I can't thank her enough. I'm very lucky. I could be on the street, nowhere to go until 6:30. I just don't understand the system, the way it goes. I just don't understand the hostel system. Here 3 years, feels like no change.
So the workshops were great with Sharon, but working on the phone, when we moved on to try and do it across the country, it wasn't going to be feasible. We had to find a better way. And I think the whole world was going through this thing of like, how do you get to people at this time. And like, you know, Zoom was the first thing you think of, but then a lot of people in services mightn't have access to Wi-Fi, mightn't have the internet. So we were thinking of things like, oh, we can get like a widescreen television. My head will be on the telly at one end of the room and 6 people will be in the room at the other end. And then it was like, you can't even put 6 people in the room together. There was lots of different organisations developing different ways to help older people, say, who were cocooning and needed support, and like tablets that were really easy to use and all. So we started looking at all that kind of stuff, and we ended up settling on the idea that if you have a bank of tablets, like 10 tablets, Zoom is installed, and that's it. And then you give it to the key worker, the staff member, and then that's given out to the participant, and they all just sit wherever they are, like in their kitchen. Sometimes they might have their own little house, or they might be in a hostel, and it's just like they're sitting there on the tablet doing the workshop. And I've been doing loads of Zoom workshops, you know what I mean? So like once it shifted into that, it was very easy to deliver. The real challenge was getting the staff who were already overwhelmed at a really challenging time. It's a very overwhelming job, I'd say, at the best of times, and then just to kind of go, you know, there's this extra bit of things that you have to do to make this happen.
It was a pandemic and everyone was in crisis, and the services particularly, I mean, they were dealing with so many issues, and there we were saying, come on, let's do a bit of poetry. So you can just imagine trying to kind of negotiate your way in through the door and make them understand the kind of value of this sort of project at that time.
Colm was able to present the programme to me and show us exactly how it was going to work, and it just looked really good.
First thing I was thinking was, God, how are we going to do a group? You know, how's that going to work? Hadn't thought of the fact that the man is like well used to all of this, and he's going, oh yeah, fine, we have, you know, tablets and we can do that. And I was going, do you know what, this could be really good.
Knew from the get-go that it was something that would be great, potential for something fantastic, but didn't know how successful or maybe how well it'll be received by our service users, whether they'd want it or not. We asked Colm to come down and he visited the service, and then that's how it snowballed from then, and it just was fantastic to see. The tablets were brilliant. They had them set up so easily to access, you know, really user friendly. It was literally just the flick of a button.
I can remember the sun was shining and open up the laptop, ready to go, boom, and all the heads just pop up on the screen, and you're like, this is working, this is great, and everyone's happy, and we're all happy to see each other, and it was just really cool. And you could see the sun shining into their rooms where they were in, the sun was shining into my room. It was like, this is like a thing, we're all in the thing now, and it just happened. Despite the fact that you're not together, the same issue around holding space, minding people in a room, all of that stuff was still there. So, and it just became what it was very quickly, and we were all really happy to have it, and it made a huge difference to people who are very isolated. Homelessness in itself is such an isolating experience, but then, you know, just throw COVID and all of the other stuff that's going on top of it, like, it was really, really difficult time for people. There was an overwhelming sense of being on the right path, that you're doing something really good and that you're making people happy in a very simple way, you know. So that's the first one was Tinton, and it was deadly.
I hereby officially begin the thing. It's starting now. Deadly.
It's frustrating for her daily, and she sits and waits around without any answers to be found. Oh, how she would love the freedom to her own permanent home.
He came in one day and we were in the kitchen when he came in, and the manager Lee came down with him and he explained who he was, and he was on about poetry and that. Now, some of the lads kind of just walked out and just didn't start up poetry, but he done a poem himself. He told us a poem, and I found it very interesting.
And it was very good of him to share his story with us, you know, what he'd been through himself, and it touched home for me, you know.
I liked what he was saying, you know what I mean? I just enjoyed what he was talking about, and the life he had, and the life we had was totally different, obviously, but kind of similar in some way.
So we went online for the 2 hours on a Thursday with Colm.
It was 6 weeks then. We were doing videos on the tablets, and we were doing our own poetry with him.
It rotated through different means to write, so there's like write about like a memory, that like a nice memory, or what's making you angry, you know, and then just rotating through to a point where there was space to talk about the actual experience that they were going through at the time, but that was never a priority. So it starts with just like write about whatever you want.
Rap, rhyme, poetry, creative writing, everything like that. There was a lot of creativity, things that you wouldn't have heard before, so it's brand new, and then that kind of opened up yourself. So if you're like kind of like lonely or whatever, you can write that down, but it was put into poetry, and like it's always kind of like opening your mind to different scenarios and such.
Colm was kind of explaining to us how it works.
He explains it in a way that you can just understand him.
Because I don't know, it's just what you feel like, and you just kind of put it into words, and it just comes out. I don't know.
Kind of, you go to places that you never expected to. You open up into a world of places that you've hit for so long.
It's hard, like it's hard for people like to be in places like this, in hostels and that. Like people have a lot of things going on, like, do you know what I mean? So you can't get all the words out because there's so much going on.
You should think about things, think about the past, and it brings up kind of the past as well. Do you get me? And it's good to get it out, like it's good to talk about it as well, like, you know what I mean?
Sometimes you have good laughs, and then other times then it was kind of sad talking about suicides and overdoses and things like that. Which happened, my brother Gary, he died over suicide.
To be honest now, the suicide part, like my two brothers committed suicide. With that suicide on the page, it kind of, I had to get over it, you know, that kind of way.
I'm struggling to get a house at the moment myself, you know, and the girls I met on the screen as well were homeless as well, you know, and 2 of them got out of it and got their houses, you know, so that's given me hope as well.
It takes a lot of your mind and everything, you know, it relaxes you, you know, and it takes all the stress out of you and everything, like, you know, and you just feel comfortable and, do you know what I mean, like, so.
Put it into words and to think about of how we're going to do it, like, and how we're feeling inside, to bring it out into words.
It's good what he does, you know. I'm delighted that we actually got to meet him and to do this.
I find it very hard to talk to people myself, like I'm very insecure, you know. But yeah, I found it very great now, Colm, now doing that. It was kind of got a lot off my shoulders.
I was so proud of the 7 poems that I'd written, you know, I didn't realise the work I'd done till I read it back myself.
This was a project that's set up to support people through the pandemic, but also to support people through one of the most difficult parts of just a really challenging time in your life, like when housing is an issue, and sort of to create a space where people can kind of talk about that process, but also to be seen as like just a person, to not be reduced to a statistic or a number or you know, just something that's filling in a slot. You're actually a person with talent.
We've helped to relieve some of the isolation that they were experiencing and the lack of creativity over such a long period of time, and yeah, it was a really, really good programme, and we really benefited from it.
So after Tinton, we went into Focus Ireland, and then after Focus Ireland, was going to go to St Vincent de Paul, and then back to the Good Shepherd, which is where the project was all piloted, but we returned there for this new iteration of it, you know. Or we could have his on stage reading the poems out to an audience, or we could have the poems put in a book, or we could have the poems framed and put up on the wall here. Like what would just like to happen with them? There's a couple of different options, you know.
Not put them in a book or something.
Yeah.
Sleep evades me. Tick-tock, the enemy is my clock. Lying on my left side or my right side. There is no peace in this bed, and worst of all, in my demented head. Dogs bark, cats fight, and still only halfway through this sleepless night. Eventually, the morning light comes, which is not a bad thing until the next sleepless night comes. I don't know if you want to use that.
Oh no, that's definitely 100% going in.
Yeah, right.
What do you think?
What's that?
Should that be in the book?
Oh, definitely. I think that's like so.
What about a name for it? Is there anything even from the work that we did, or anything that comes to mind?
Look at me and understand. No, look at me and try and understand.
What do you think, Sean?
That sounds good.
You know, read the poem, and then maybe it's 1 or 2 people out of 10. At least they'll have a different view of people in the Good Shepherd.
Like the 6th part of the 6-week process was always about discussing how best to make more of the work. we always wanted to have this kind of idea, like what else happens with the work? Who else needs to see this work? Where else can we take it? And then in that, there's a sort of personal development and confidence building element of like making the work more, but making the person more, like saying, because people, I think, sometimes say, oh, that's not for me. Or, you know, the platform isn't for me, the stage isn't for me, those lights, the spotlight isn't for me. But when you put someone under a spotlight, it's like spellcasting when you're showing those spotlights on people. So thinking of all of the different ways that it can be challenging to talk about this stuff, it was also about like kind of, you can create some distance, you can offer people different ways to do it. Like the possibility of having actors read the work was always on the table. Thinking of like some sort of staged experience, thinking of like publication and thinking of film. And I think with COVID and the fact that venues were closed, the film in itself became the event. So like, you're moving through this process. It's like the big thing is coming. The big event is coming. You're getting ready for this big thing. So every poem they write is preparation, and there's awareness that there's this thing at the end that you're getting ready for. And in the absence of venues, we ended up sort of having a sort of theatrical element of just, you're being filmed, your work is being elevated in that way.
Lyrical initiative, coming so blissful. Can't achieve purpose with no commitment. I'm feeling courageous, which is a bit outrageous. Trapped in this place with the same old faces. Trying to grip reality is a bit of a laugh. Wasting away as I look at the stars. But that's not fun no more. Can't raise a child when your mind's at war. Flying down the motorway trying to make haste. Mind and reason spewing over the place. The demons are coming, but it's never too late. Stopping so voices go get help, go get saved. But fuck it, I woke up heart's cold no more. Thoughts blissful and sound and my soul is sure. But keep on fucking charging, make the moment last. When you're on the brink, don't go back to the past. Take 2 steps back, grab a Mackie D's. Dying for a fucking cheaper, yes man, please.
On location in Waterford, we had filming for Vincent de Paul and Focus Ireland and Tinton. The priority in Kilkenny was, it was, you know, we'd like a book. The service users said in Kilkenny they'd like a book. And then it was like, well, we launched the book. So we're here now in the Book and Coffee Shop Kilkenny to celebrate the final stages of the process with the lads up in the Good Shepherd, where we came together. We wrote the poems over 6 weeks. Now we're launching this pamphlet called Look at Me and Try and Understand. Look at Me and Try and Understand, which is a title that Sean and Joe came up with together. And I think the poems and the people involved in this project, more than anything, all they're asking for is empathy and a bit of connection. They say the shortest distance between two people is a smile, and sometimes a bit of eye contact and a bit of humanity is the last thing that we're prepared to give somebody when they're undergoing the crisis of homelessness. But that's the thing we need when we're going through that more than anything else.
What is life? Who is life? Where is life? People go right because the crowd does. But a few know left is right. They love things that are meant to be used and use things that are meant to be loved. They think money is happiness because it's green, but green is also a colour to describe mental health warriors. We are at war, not with the world, but ourselves.
No sleep is steep, it would make you want to weep. Keep on saying it's not plain, today is the day.
Coming to the second poem, it's called The Stick. From home to classroom, the stick was in play, and then back again in childhood and in manhood, it was always there. Through armies and life, it was always there. Behind me, above me, trying to scare. But trust me, my friends, there's nothing to fear. The stick doesn't rule us, not in 100 years. The stick is my servant, and I will discard whenever I care. Because the stick doesn't define me, everyone has a stick, so you must too. But just discard it and just be you.
It was kind of nerve-wracking because just the nature of the kind of the life that the lads are living sometimes. Some people just couldn't make it this evening, and it looked like nearly it wasn't going to happen. And then we had some people step in and step up for our pals, and it just became like just a really lovely gig. Like, you know, I got into this kind of poetry buzz because I wanted to feel more connected, I wanted to feel more alive, I wanted to feel part of things, and to bring those sort of benefits to people who were living through some sort of crisis, a sort of a disintegration of a previous life as they tried to find and grapple onto a new one. It's just like we all just forgot where we were for a minute and we were all just enjoying each other's company, and it felt really special, you know, almost like, you know, that tribal thing of just being in a circle, like the old traditional sing-song, you know. It was just fucking deadly. I feel justified in the hypothesis I have that, you know, poetry and art can just make you happier, can make your life feel better. And then as things rolled on, we knew that we could use a theatre again. We decided to put everybody together, all the participants from Waterford into Garda Lane for a staged kind of a theatre showcasing of the poetry. Today was set up as a celebration and a way to mark the work that's been done. Some people here today, it was the first time I saw them, like in real life, you know, outside the Zoom. And it's just great to see people in 3D sort of being activated into their favourite version of themselves and being listened to and being validated. Some painful experiences, some joyful moments. That phrase, like, we're all born creative, it just takes a while to get afraid. We all love ourselves when we're small and we don't even question how valuable we are to other people and how interesting we are. And then something happens as we get older, and sometimes people can really be bruised and battered by life. And then a lot of that kind of light, that joy, that playfulness can kind of be suppressed, or there's nowhere for it to go. I wanted everybody to get that thing today, which is that their experiences matter. And the thing that I always love, where people are absolutely terrified of the stage and the spotlight, and then when they're in it, they actually love it.
With my past, there was good and bad. I've had my fair share of happiness and sadness, but in the last few months, things are starting to look up. I have my home, my family, and a job, yup. Even though we're in the middle of the COVID, doesn't stop me from doing my courses. I'm lucky to be where I am today. I've Tinton to thank for that every day. Day by day, I'm getting happier and happier. I wake up every morning and smile that I'm here another day, and I pray to God it stays that way. So this is me, Stacey, and this is what I got to say.
Everyone was just going to turn up today. I just say, just call their name, they stand up and they share their poems. And some people weren't available today to do that because of different circumstances. So we had an actor called Joe Mark come in, we had a poet called Fergus, we had a theatre practitioner and writer called Emer Cheesty, and we had Gail Sheridan, who was a poet but also a staff member. And they all stepped up and stood in and advocated and shared the work of some poets who couldn't be here today. And one of them sadly passed away, Dwayne, and his work, you know, offered a profound insight into just what it means to be human.
This next one is called Birthday. Got a few texts, happy birthday messages. Son and daughter came. I got a few razor blades. In bed for 9 o'clock. I could have had a little party if I wanted, but I wasn't into it. Went for me phone to ring my dad. I was thinking he probably forgot. But what I'd forgotten is that he's already passed away. He's been dead 5 or 6 years. My dad was a good man. He was well liked. I don't know what happened that made me forget. It was something just spur of the moment. It was my birthday and I wanted to say hello. It put me on a downer. But I came round then. Talking to my ma, I felt better. Now I'm putting on a bit of weight after eating a big cake.
I think the best thing about something like this, and not to overstate its value, because it's like, you know, it's people doing poetry. It's not solving anything really, apart from just letting people articulate themselves and feel seen. But I think the impact of invisibility in this situation is underestimated. The impact of that isn't really understood, or it's ignored. When you're standing in a county council office trying to tell somebody that you're homeless, you're just one in a line, you're one in a queue of 10,000 kind of going, can I have a house please? And it might not even be a house that you need, it might be support, it might be like some other way to get back on your feet after losing your job or something like that. But a day like today, and hopefully at the end of this project, when the work is out there, it's just a means for people to understand that it could be them, and that in protecting the people who are already exposed and vulnerable to homelessness, that we're actually protecting ourselves. That's what a country is. It's a bunch of people who agree to look after each other. It's like I think it should be like a big family.
This one is about Tramore. Out in the morning time, have our breakfast out there, been on the beach for a couple of hours. Get ice cream, go up to the chip shop, chips, burgers, sausages. Get on some of the rides, you'd have to, for them being so young. Once they were the small size of a bottle of Coke, 3 months premature, it fit in the palm of your hand. 3 months fighting for life in an incubator. It means so much to me to see them all growing up and having fun. Yeah. Thanks.
Mudball by Gary. We were both in jail. He was getting out, and he knew he was getting back in. He said, "You can share the cell with me." I said, "Yeah." 5 weeks later, he was dead. He was there for me, always. From 3 or 4 years of age. They couldn't handle us. They tried to break us, trap us in homes, but I robbed the key to open all the doors. We had a few fights, but who doesn't? We always made up. We got over it. Shook hands. We didn't know anything but this kind of lifestyle. Round here, we just go to town and rob the place wild. I can remember one time sniffing Tipp-Ex from a bag and slapping it into his face. We both laughed. We got a Peugeot 206 once. End up picking up 2 fine Bures. Out to Woodstown, driving up on the beach. Car stuck in the water. Tide coming in. Garda on our case, no escape. And what did he say? No comment, all the way.
Poets and artists and writers, they were involved in the most significant sea changes in the country. But maybe we've lost sight of how intrinsic that should be. And I think from a policy point of view and from a public service point of view, we have to get back to that. And the purpose of this project now in my mind is to show how valuable that is. It has value and it can make people understand each other very quickly because it's an emotional connection.
Before poetry started here, people's form of expression only, anything closely related to the truth, only ever came out in anger. But maybe someone was a wee bit intoxicated and all of a sudden you were getting it in 7 barrels because they were going to tell you a whole set of home truths. People's level of honesty or people's level of confidence, to be honest, would be constantly diminished by either their self-esteem or how they seen your role or influence or power you held over them. And I think the workshops probably started to say to people, say what's on your mind. It could be true, could be a bit distorted, but we'll figure that out. And we can't figure that out. Say it. It's on your mind. It's your truth today. It means that to you. We also noticed our levels of complaints went up after the poetry workshops. And they probably went up around 17-18%. And it was all his fault. Because he gave them all a cup. And they were complaining over everything. Colm Keegan increased our complaints. And the HSE doesn't like it. They even noticed a slight change in our complaints. But you know what? That's actually a good thing. Because they are one of the few opportunities we get to really learn something. Because complaints do teach you.
What I have found is people are much more vocal in terms of, it's very easy to kind of just fade into the background, and you have to put yourself out there. And definitely, I would have seen that from the lads. They are more confident and they're not taking a step back anymore.
Yeah, it just really ignited something in people, and we're still feeling the benefit of it. Some people who came to one session, they still got something out of it, and it was great with Colm. He was so good to, keep it easy, and there was no pressure on anyone, and he was just kind of rolling with whatever happened that week, and just making it work. So that was brilliant. We're going to keep building on the work that has come out of this workshop, producing a book of poetry at the end of the year from the women in Tintone.
I've been through a rough time over the last 15 years, and ending up in homeless services, upsets me a lot. I'm trying to move on from here. I want to write a book one day to help others.
Poetry was kind of like, I didn't want to do it, I never thought of it. It's something that you get into, and it's something it's good to do that, and I'd like to do more of it, like even try to start a book,
If I call him with me every day, I'd have the best, I'd have books of poetry, do you get me? Because he helps the way he helps it, with it, do you get me?
It's a kind of thing I've learned about holding space and minding people when they're going through a thing, whether it's throwing people over the waterfall when I was a kayak instructor, or whether it's taking people through a new experience, which is poetry. Because poetry, funny enough, can feel like going over a waterfall for people, because it's like there's all these connotations, there's all this stuff around skill and whether it's right or wrong and all of that kind of stuff, when really it's just about self-expression, you know what I mean?
You could see that kind of opportunity people were getting to kind of process and acknowledge, but that they were also being a little bit accountable where they needed to be. That's something you can't really pay for. That can take people years, and yet in some ways Colm managed to do that with people in very short workshops, and I hope that's something that they can carry into the future.
The subtext is, it's about telling the truth about what's going on for you, you know what I mean? I never would really overtly say that or demand that from people. But when I say a poem, I'm like, look, here's me, talking about a time when I was a kid and I found some hazelnuts, or here's me talking about how angry Ireland makes me sometimes. And it's just like it's me like sharing these lyric responses to like what it means to be alive, you know what I mean?
Growing up in the Daysha, we used to play knock-a-dolly on the gaffs. We'd tear the place up and make a rally track.
We'd fly up to the mud hills on the BMXs. Take me back to when I was younger then.
Made friends and lost them through the years, and I've not seen the mud hills in so long. I've grown up, but I can't wait to get my own home.
Mud hills are gone. I'm on my way, dreaming of a gaff down those country lanes.
Just keep dreaming, enjoy the journey, swap worry and anxiety for joy.
Keep the head up, don't cry. Just remember when we watch the sunset.
Over the mud hills of Ballybeg, what a spot. The mud hills we used to play, now it's all dug up and full of graves.
Where we go to pay respects for those we lost. Had my first kiss on a Friday night.
Back in the priest's garden, I did it right. I was younger then. Take me back to when things were so free and easy.
We'd rob cheap spirits and lash them back. We went home to the parents and get a few slaps.
Running from the law through the back fields and getting drunk with my friends. 10 years old and smoking joints and sniffing petrol with dodgy people.
We found odd jobs. We were getting set up we did not know. Me and my friends are also grown up now.
Stuck in a hostel trying to get out. Trying to find my way, get my own place.
Somewhere nice, out of the way. Thinking about these realizations.
The changes that might happen for good someday. Maybe then I'll get to feel the same as
when I watched the sunset over the Ballybeg mud hills.
One friend left and never came back.
One friend got stuck in a cul-de-sac.
One had 2 kids, but struggles alone.
Ones we loved most overdosed.
Many we lost to suicide. I'm just barely getting by.
but at least some people are helping me while I wait to get him a new home.
And I'm on my way to a new life. Take me back to when I was younger then.
I found my heart and broke it there. Made friends and lost them through the years.
And I've not seen the mudhill fields in so long.
I become very angry, like. And I've been working in this context for years now, looking at people, traumatised people, brutalised by systems that can't listen to them properly. And I went into this project with like lots of access to grind. And all I found was people trying to help. And people really struggling and going above and beyond. But they don't have the resources. I would be hoping that there'd be some sort of difference being made to local authorities and how they listen to people.
We need to find different ways of listening to people's experience. It's really made us look at how we advocate for people.
And from the County Council point of view, we have elected members who make decisions about funding and about programmes and amenities. And if we can build their understanding of the people who avail of the services that we provide and what they need and what they can contribute, I think we can start to change how programmes are developed, how finances are allocated, and then we move on and do that at a national level.
Okay, so I didn't read this one yet, but I'll do my best, but I might make a mistake, so. Home is living by my own rules and regulations. Home is getting to receive your own post without someone else acting as the middleman. Home is not having to hand over your key to someone deemed more responsible. Home is having your medication in the cupboard and not locked in a safe. Home is not having to stop to get your bag searched in the hallway. Home is not living in a governmental care service. Home is getting to choose what I want to watch on TV and relieving myself without the anxiety of someone hearing me pee. Home is a safe space shared with those you select. It's a place where you have the time to reflect. Home is the peace to hear your own thoughts and letting your true colours paint the walls. Home is where you're responsible for all of the expenses and where you live free without any pretences. Home's rocking that bedhead look while maintaining esteem and its immunity from the worldwide quarantine. Home is my vibe, my style, my decor. Home's a colony with my tribe's mates living next door. Home is security away from any abuser and a safeguard from worries about the future. Home is more than just four walls and a roof. Home is where I can finally start to improve.